God sat on his throne, high in the heavens on fluffy white clouds, looking down on the world with dismay. Looked at the world and said to himself, there's an awful lot of greed. There's some selfishness. People aren't really taking good care of one another. They're fighting and they're in war. So he decided to send an angel to come and scope out the scene, to see if it was really what he was seeing was accurate. And the angel came down and spent some time here on earth and went back to heaven and said, oh, God, yeah, it's pretty dismal. It's really disappointing. About 95% of the people have really lost their way. They're sharing hatred instead of love. Now, there is about 5% of the people who are diligently following you, and they're sharing love. So God took it all in and thought, well, gee, I wonder if he was just exaggerating. I'll send another angel. So he sent a second angel, and well, lo and behold, the second angel came back with the same experience. Yeah, about 95% of people have really given up on God. But 5% are faithful, loyal followers. So God sat with that for a while and thought about it and decided he would send an email. But he would send an email of encouragement to that 5% who was doing really well, so that they would continue to do well and hopefully convince others to do well too. So do you know what the email said? Do you know what the email said? No? You didn't get it either? That's what happens when we break the 10 Commandments. We've spent a lifetime learning about the 10 Commandments and how to keep them, and today we're going to start to break them. So I offer this invitation to you. Whatever feels right, whatever sounds congruent with you, whatever makes sense, take it home and use it. And what doesn't, just put it under your seat, maybe for another day or maybe for another person. So the idea of God giving us these laws of life so that we can make meaning of them, it takes the concept of God deep within us. And in 1953, a New Thought author, Dr. Emmett Fox, said this: God is not just an abstract idea up there in the sky having no meaning in everyday life. God is something that we have within every day in the most prosaic and ordinary ways. And when we are paying attention, don't we see God in those minuscule little events and moments of our day? A phone call, a piece of mail. We can see and feel that presence of the divine in every little nuance of our life. And in 1988, Unity minister Eric Butterworth, one of my favorites, wrote these words: "Unless we are free of the image of God as a big man out there, these 10 Commandments will have little meaning." So we're called to remember that when Moses received these 10 Commandments, it was after a long period of time searching and moving in a spiritual journey, wandering. It was a period of spiritual evolution that allowed these commandments, these laws, to be shared. So let's begin with Exodus 20, verse 2 and 3, that very first commandment. I am the Lord your God, who led you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. It feels pretty intimidating to hear that, yes? Because we have some other gods before the God. So I want to share a thought of Emmett Fox, who says these 10 commandments are not prohibitions, even though it says thou shalt not throughout. They're not prohibitions. He says that when we look at the words thou shalt not, it really says that you can't. When we introduce it in that concept, you can't. It's not possible to have any other God before the God. And then there was a time when that people worshipped many gods, but that was status. None came before the one God. So we take that concept of oneness of God. For me, this means that there are many names for that one God. There's many names, but there is one source of life, one source of all that is. And there are cultures that honor the sun god, the moon god. And for me, this is the aspects of God, the many aspects of God. My Hindu friends honor many gods and goddesses. Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune and wealth. Krishna, the god of compassion, kindness, and love. Those are all aspects of the universal, the one God. So by whatever name we use, by whatever means we describe, we are all speaking about the same one. Chandra, who is the priest in the Hare Krishna temple in Dallas, we talk in different terms, but we're speaking, and he agrees, we're speaking about the same thing. That essence and energy that sources our life. That which really cannot be named. We're assigning names to the unnameable. So we get beyond the limits of our human vocabulary to feel an essence of this God, this essence and energy that moves through all of us. Every human being, the essence and energy that moves through all of creation, all of the animals, all of the plants, that which vibrates as life. Eric Butterworth says and encourages us to move away from the God of our intellect, that part of us that has to put a name and qualities and characters and rightness and wrongness about God, to move away from us, that, and to allow that presence of God to catch on fire in our hearts. Can you feel a difference in that? And poet laureate James Dillard Freeman says, you can know me only as a feeling and faith in which we cannot see God, but we see the impact, we see the manifestation and the outcome. So when we hold that idea of letting loose of our intellect and how we have to analyze and prove, just be with that idea of God, and it becomes ever more real. To have no other God is to hold the awareness of the vast allness of God, the totality of everything that always ever was, is, and could ever be all in the same point of the allness of God. To hold the awareness of the entirety of the universe and all that exists in the manifest realm as the allness of God. What we can see in our universe and what lay beyond what we can see in our universes. Because in case you probably noticed that over the course of time, we've looked beyond our solar system, right? We used to think that the dark space was empty, and now we know that it's not. And what we know today might be minuscule compared to what we know in 100 years or 200 years. So when we allow space for that infinite allness, man, that's when we really can feel that God. To have no other gods is to live with the understanding that you are the activity of God, that God is living in and through as you. And as you, Sheila, and Cynthia, and Keller, and Deb, living, and Lisa, and in every single one, everyone you look at, everyone you see, in spite of all the otherness that we do as humans, every single being is God. That's the allness of God. To have no other gods is to live from the consciousness of God as all. And we can say those words, and we can sit and feel that to a degree. But we are limited in what we can think and feel as the allness of God. It's amazing to sit in a quiet place and just allow your awareness to expand further and further and further outward, knowing that no matter how far my mind expands, I don't even come close to touching the edges of God. That's the vastness of it. That makes it hard for me to breathe, to think that. Yes. And when we live in the awareness that this essence and energy is transcendent, all present, all available, and as intimate as the beat of our heart and the breath we take, that essence is literally breathing us into life, then there is no other God. There is no other presence. And we see that God doesn't allow war. God doesn't allow disease. God doesn't allow poverty. Take a breath. God doesn't allow those things to happen. God isn't idly sitting by, sipping tea, and allowing in that throne in the puffy white clouds, allowing the world to rage against itself. God doesn't let people suffer and strife. God doesn't stop the waters of the ocean from heating and spinning and forming a hurricane. That's all our human experience. God doesn't cause them, and God doesn't stop them. God is. God is. 1 John 4 says, God is love. We hold the truth with faith, and that essence and energy that moves in the universe, in all creation. And we live with the awareness that essence is transcendent. We live with that essence. And we live that unity principle. We say it every Sunday. We said it this morning. That very essence is presently working and responding to us. So if we have a heart filled with hatred, resentment, and judgmentalness, the universe, God, is just responding to that. If we have a heart of love, compassion, and kindness, the universe, God, is responding to that. It's a reciprocal. God is the essence that brought in the movements of the universe that brought each of us here today. We all had a choice to be here or somewhere else. We all had a choice to wake up this morning and get ourselves ready and come to unity. God is that principle. It's hard to think of God as a principle when we've been taught all our lives something else. That God might be the judge, might be all of these other things, but God is that principle. And that second principle, that we say, third principle, that we are co-creators with God, creating our world through thoughts held in mind. So it is not as God is not capricious. Well, I'm in a good mood today, so I'll let these people have this, and I'll take away this from other person because I'm in a foul mood another day. That's not God. God is, period. It's hard to wrap our head around that God just is. It's we who are capricious. That's we who are changing our mood. It's we that are changing our minds about ourselves and about other people. We go back and forth. We and the 8 billion people on the planet. We believe or we don't believe. We trust or we don't trust. We love or we don't love. It's us. And that consciousness that moves through our world. That principle that we are co-creators with God, it's more than just words to recite each Sunday. It's thoughts, it's energy to live by. It's what we call that divine truth. Knowing and believing and being steadfast in our faith, how could there be anything but one God? How could there be anything but that one presence? We say it in our first unity principle. There is one presence, one power moving in the universe. And I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods before me. One God. Only one. One. Yet there are many, many names for God. And for me, it's something that can't be named. And our various faith traditions have a variety of names. We hear Allah. We hear Yahweh, we hear Krishna, and so on. Just like the sun that warms our day in French, Spanish, English, German, it'll be something different. Yet what is it? It's still the sun that we all see from different parts of our world. We call it according to our language, but it's the same ball of energy that warms the days, that warms the earth and grows the plants. It's all the same. And when our thinking evolves, we can allow, we can see, we can feel, and we can understand that these many names are for the same source. And that source is what makes us manifest. And we often feel that thread of humanity. Kevin, sitting right here. I have been thinking about Kevin for days. And he's been away. And who shows up today? That is not coincidence. That's our interconnectedness as humanity. You have that experience. Somebody comes to your mind, and in minutes or hours, or the phone rings, and that person is on the other phone. Right? We have those experiences. Somebody might be on our mind, and we see them in the grocery store, the bank, or wherever you might be. It's happened to every single one of us. It's not coincidence. It's our interconnectedness, our energies interconnected, that brings us together. That's the thread of humanity that binds us, every single one of us. So when someone comes to your mind, and instead of just letting it go, lift a blessing, lift a prayer, a kind word of compassion towards them. As soon as they pop into your mind, share a good thought for them. It's a beautiful interconnectedness. And we are in that oneness with our God as well. When we live from that space, we recognize that there is only one energy, one power in our universe. So take that home with you today and consider that first commandment from the perspective of our oneness with our source, our oneness with each other, our oneness with the grasses and the trees, our oneness with the fishes that swim and the birds that fly, our oneness with the animals that walk on the earth and those that creep and crawl on the earth. Consider our oneness with all that is. As I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, you shall have no other gods before me. The one God. And above all, as you carry this with you this week, let all you do be done with love. Namaste.